Hello, BookTube, and welcome to Two If by Sea.
Mine with an ice cube because I'm less than classy.
This is an event that is long in the coming here. We started it a while ago and then left it into abeyance. I have a guest. This is Mark Richardson of Richardson Reads. And a long time ago, we came up with the idea on a Vermont back road to do a series on nautical fiction and nonfiction, and to call it Two If by Sea. I think there's a chance, I've never heard anyone contradict, I think there's a chance that Mark and I have spent more time on Earth's oceans than any other booktubers, in very different capacities. As I often joke, the captains of the vessels that I leased would not have wanted to see his vessels coming, because he was in law enforcement. But we bounced all around. We did a whole bunch of videos back and forth in channels, and then recently, to revive Two If by Sea, we decided to go to the motherlode of all nautical stuff, and that is the Patrick O'Brian, Aubrey-Maturin seafaring novels. These are Napoleonic-era historical fiction. So those of you who know a little bit about nautical fiction will remember Horatio Hornblower. That also was, for a previous generation, very famous Napoleonic-era seafaring fiction. This is not... Hornblower was very much a man alone. He had his first officer Bush, and there were a couple of other characters that showed up once in a while. You wouldn't have wanted to be his wife, but there wasn't any kind of equality, right? Because we were going to follow Horatio Hornblower from being a mewling infant on board ship to being a lord, to being Lord Hornblower. So there was no equality in these novels. There is, starting right at the very beginning. This is a series that was not done. Hornblower, for instance, started out in the middle of the story, and then Forster went back and then forward to cover the whole life of his character. The two main characters here are John Aubrey, who's a serving captain in the Napoleonic era British Navy, and Stephen Maturin, who's an Irish nationalist and naturalist and something of a spy as well. And in the first book, Master and Commander, I don't think we've never done any of these, right? We're starting.
I did the first three.
Yeah, you're right. We'll have to link to those. Mark did discussions of the first three. I don't think I ever have. But Aubrey and Maturin meet in the first book in the series, Master and Commander. They have a disastrous first meeting. And it almost comes to blows. They literally do think. Aubrey thinks for a minute, has this wormy little man insulted me? Do I need to call him out and have a duel? So it almost ends right away. But instead of that, they end up being fast friends. They couldn't be any less like each other. Maturin is big and bluff and confident and a lifetime seaman. Maturin is no good at sea. He's a total landlubber and is very cramped and intellectual. He's not. He second guesses and triple guesses everything. So in those first three books, we meet them in Master and Commander, and there's a massive set piece battle in the Master and Commander where Jack Aubrey makes his fortune, really, by taking a very small ship of war and actually managing to defeat in battle a gigantic ship of war called the Cacafuego. And that cements his reputation as Lucky Jack Aubrey, the winningest commander in the British Navy. And they go on from there. Then the next book is Post Captain, and then we're doing the Mauritius Command, which is the third book of the series. And he's...
Fourth.
Oh, what am I thinking of then? HMS Surprise is the third one? Okay. All right, and that's where we are today. We're going to discuss the Mauritius Command today. The basic plot line of which is that after a long time on land, Jack Aubrey, with the intercession, the help of Stephen Maturin, who is a doctor to royalty, and so he's able to put a word in just the right ears. They get the mission to Jack Aubrey gets a ship. That's all he's been dreaming of for months and months and months. That's all he's been dreaming of. They get a mission to go to the island of Mauritius, boot out the French and their garrison, and install an English governor. That's. I mean, am I leaving anything big out?
No, the governor's, what's his name, Furquois?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's quite a character.
They take the governor with them, the governor to be with them, and just go. They know perfectly well that the French are invested in the area. They know the odds are against them. There's one point in the novel where Stephen Maturin actually asks, "What are the odds against us?" Which I get the impression you're not supposed to ask.
No, I just pictured Spock sitting there calculating it out.
Well, Aubrey just says they're not good.
Yeah.
But much depends on luck. And the mission that takes them there is different from any other mission that Jack Aubrey has had because he is given the position of Commodore. So he's not just commanding his own ship, he's commanding a couple of other ships as well. The thing that Americans have trouble with, right? Because in the British Navy system, Commodore is a job, not a rank.
Right.
And so you don't become a Commodore like and you stay that way. you get the job and then you go back to being a captain.
So you fly a pennant, you're appointed, well, in his case, by, what is it, the Admiral Bertie,
Birdie.
right?
Yes.
Who is a political apparatchik.
Great character.
At best. Great character, and actually quite competent.
Yeah.
Once he's at sea, but he his priorities are his getting to be a baronet or what.
Yes, his wife wants him to. His wife wants to be a baroness.
Yeah,
She
so
wants
he has no choice.
and
in
that
using
often happened, right? Really successful naval men could get. First of all, you could become fabulously wealthy
Right.
if you managed your problem. Jack Aubrey, in the course of this novel, would already be wealthy if you weren't being fleeced left, right,
Well,
and
look
center.
at look at Bertie. All of a sudden, you find out you got Lucky Jack Aubrey. He's going to be your commodore. You're thinking money
Yeah.
because, like Cochrane, who he's based on.
Yes, he's based on a real figure named Cochrane.
He is like a magnet for prizes, and it's luck, but it's also talent.
Yeah, because once you find a
You,
prize,
you have
be able
to
take
you
them.
have to find it, and then Aubrey at one point talks about that. Well, he knows tons of great captains who just
Yes.
don't have the luck.
He has a
Fine.
long
They're on
soliloquy.
blockade for 6 months off.
Yeah, where their enemy is the weather. He
Right.
says, where they don't ever
Yeah.
face an enemy in battle.
Yeah.
And it's such a figure of Jack Aubrey's career that in this novel, his group, what would you call a Commodore's group? Squadron or
a flotilla, like
flotilla or something?
Yeah.
They take off. We next see them when they're well at sea, and we're told just as an afterthought that as soon as they left, virtually as soon as they left England, they did find a couple of prizes that
Right.
Jack Aubrey just snaps them right up.
Right. One was a former British ship that had been taken by the
Right,
French.
right. And in that scene, Stephen Maturin is wondering why they bombarded the ship all day instead of just taking it. And Aubrey says that it needs to be a certain amount of time for it not to be salvaged.
Right, he had an hour.
It
You
has to
want
be-
salvage. You
It
want
has to be a
prize.
prize. I thought it was fascinating. Imagine that. Because
So he's crafty enough to know these. You may say lucky Jack Aubrey, but he knows the ins and outs.
yeah, it's a thing that crops up in these books.
And
Jack
what is
Aubrey,
it? The island is Reunion they go to?
Réunion and Mauritius. Yeah.
So
That are in the hands of the French. So Jack Aubrey just has to. They've got land batteries.
But at
and everything.
Ashgrove, to start with, the part I thought was interesting is setup. That's his little.
Oh
cottage.
right, he has
Maybe a
Ashgrove
little,
Cottage.
maybe named way more pretentiously than it was.
Right. Yeah, it's not a big. Place.
He talks about the astronomer Herschel's sister.
Yes, who helped
And-
him.
And she was a real character and a great astronomer
She
by
was.
being a woman.
She was a great
When I
astronomer.
first read about her, who was the biographer? Was it Richard Hughes? Is that his name? The one who did
Richard Holmes.
Holmes.
Yeah.
Richard Holmes.
Yeah.
Did a big piece on her. That's where I first found out about her. So I'm sitting there reading Patrick O'Brien thinking, okay, what doesn't this guy know? Right? You know, that's an aside for me anyway. And to find out that Patrick O'Brien wove that right in there.
Wove it right in. Yeah,
And,
we're supposed to goggle at the offhand things that Jack Aubrey can do, just because he's in the time period.
Right.
He can meet this woman who's now famous among astronomers. Same thing with at one point. It's not in this book, but at one point in one book, Jack Aubrey is in his mind just running through a casual inventory of the stuff at Ashgrove Cottage, and one of the things is a Shakespeare First Folio. And we're not supposed to think anything of it
Right.
because of the day he probably.
That just
wouldn't.
meant it was old and he needed a new one.
And the opening scene in Ashgrove Cottage. That's how the book starts. It starts with Jack Aubrey at home with his wife and his children and his mother-in-law, and he's not happy at all. It's not necessary. His mother-in-law is awful, but it's not necessarily that home life is awful. It's just he wants to be at sea, and since the reader knows that he is going to go to sea, he's obviously not. We're obviously not going to have a novel at Ashgrove Cottage. Patrick O'Brien uses that opportunity at the beginning. His description of life at Ashgrove Cottage is beautiful high comedy because it's so miserable. Every part of it
I
is
love it.
miserable.
I love it when Aubrey's talking to Maturin about his daughters.
He can't figure out why they don't have hair. They just
And
sit there and
he's
stare.
immensely disappointed.
Yes, he's immensely disappointed. Do they all come this way?
And Maturin, I mean, it was like, what is wrong with you, right? You got two beautiful girls. No, well, that's a little difficult.
There's a great moment when, because Jack Aubrey's not complaining. And Maturin is not criticizing. It's the reader that's supposed to realize how miserable Ashgrove Cottage is. And at one moment, they're out in the garden, just talking. And when their conversation falls silent, we're told that you can hear the weevils eating Jack Aubrey. You can hear them munching on his crops. At one point, they meet the cow. And Stephen Maturin has to guess that that's what it is because it's in such horrible shape. Yeah. And the observatory
is really interesting.
It's tiny. Yeah. There's a cram inside it during a rainstorm.
Well, he goes by and all he sees is Aubrey's butt.
But soon enough, they're off to sea. And unlike in earlier books, where it's Jack Aubrey's ship, and those of you who aren't familiar with Napoleonic seafaring, certainly there are hundreds of books here that could brush you up on the subject. The captain is God on the ship. He can. The only vestige we have left of that is the captain can marry someone. But in this era, captain could kill you, toss you over the side, do anything he wants to you at any time, break you in rank, absolute authority. The only difference this time around is that he has other captains. There are other ships in his flotilla.
But that's after the initial cruise down there.
Right.
And the initial cruise is sort of critical because he had to take these pressed sailors that come from north of London who are of totally landlocked culture, right? And he doesn't have time to train them to be sailors. Then he has some pretty rough characters, which you would normally get anyway. So when he takes that prize, not only does he impress people, but he has British sailors who were prisoners that were quality. So he takes the prize and mans it with all the dregs. And then he spends, because it's a slow passage, he spends the entire time working on gunnery. And this is what he is. He's precise. Everything was drills with him, and he got people so they're second nature. And, the other captains would be like, well, I don't want to waste any shot. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that.
And the insight Aubrey always says is, it doesn't matter how well you train the men if they can't hear the guns. If you're not using powder, then when combat comes, they're going to be stunned. They're not going to know what to do. And that doesn't happen. Yeah, he meshes his ship into a fighting force. And when we meet the other captains, that one of the book's biggest psychological dramas starts to unfold. Because we meet a mirror universe, Aubrey and Maturin. We meet one of his captains, Lord Clonfert.
What a fascinating guy he was.
Absolutely fascinating. He wants to be Jack Aubrey. He wants to have that reputation for bravery. He wants to have that reputation for dash. But he's fake. He's phony. And
Jack, but he's talented.
He's talented. He is brave.
And he is brave.
But he's
off.
He's not genuine.
He's off. He's off kilter somehow. And the only way you would know it is because Jack Aubrey's there.
Because Jack Aubrey's there.
And the reason he suffers is because he knows it. Because Jack Aubrey's there.
And he suffers endlessly, no matter what. The existence of Jack Aubrey gives him no peace. And he has an Irish doctor, Dr. McMahon, who, unlike Stephen Maturin, has no self-control. Maturin has, all through the series, he deals with laudanum. He deals with an on-again, off-again struggle with being addicted to laudanum. McMahon is just a drunk. Hardcore. Takes no effort to control it. So you see this weird refraction of Aubrey and Maturin, only an unsuccessful one. Clonfert he's a dandy.
Remember the narwhal?
He's a teller of tall tales.
Yeah.
He has a horn of a narwhal, and he says it's the horn of a unicorn, and then he himself has written it. At one point, when Stephen Maturin visits him, Maturin thinks a line that reminded me of Jason Harrigan. Says that that his personal quarters look like a brothel moved into a monastery. Yes, exactly. There's only one booktuber who fits that
If
description.
they ever do an annotated edition, I believe that will make it. Maybe with the appropriate photograph.
With one little detail on the cruise down filled me with horror. There's a moment before they cross the equator when they're, if I read the longitude correctly, they're off the west coast of Africa. And Aubrey and Maturin want a little privacy, so they row a boat away from the ship so that Stephen Maturin can examine a floating mat of vegetation. And they're talking because there's no ceremony between them. Maturin is not part of the command structure, so he's the invaluable extra voice for the captain to talk to. And at one point, Maturin looks over and is surprised because Aubrey is disrobing. And he tells him, well, this is going to be your last chance to go for a swim before we cross the equator and hit stormy weather. And he dives into the water. And I just shivered with horror. If I'm reading the location correctly, the water where he is would be teeming with sharks.
All water is teeming with sharks.
But off the west coast of Africa, good Lord, and near floating vegetation.
And eating a big turkey drum.
And we're not told in that scene if Stephen Maturin actually does go for a swim. Surely he would drown. Comes close to drowning, what?
Well, he gets knocked on the noggin twice. I mean, you're going to drown if you're passed out. I'm just telling you.
And we meet a rarity here that made me think of you, actually. When they get to Réunion and Mauritius, we meet a land-based version of Jack Aubrey. Made me think of your love of Richard Cornwell. Because the Marine captain...
Oh, Keating.
He's the genuine article. He's not false. He's not pompous. He's not Lord Clonfert.
Yeah.
And he isn't nautical. No. It's like a whole world. You know, what if Patrick O'Brien had written his adventures?
Him and Aubrey make a devastating.
They make a devastating team. They actually have, up until one horrifically bad part of the campaign. Everything that can go wrong goes wrong. But other than that, yeah, Aubrey and Keating make a great team. Excuse me.
And the other interesting thing is they're not against a weak opponent.
No.
What's his name? The Commodore of the French, Hamlin, I think was his name.
I think so.
Yeah, he's competent, and Aubrey's watching everything he does, and he really respects him.
Yeah. Same thing with the land commander. The land
yeah.
commander also knows what he's doing.
So this is not an easy go, but they keep getting each other's weather gauge, as you say, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
Aubrey's going to win that game eventually.
Yes.
But,
He is routinely shown to be better at this than anybody else. That's one element that he and Stephen Maturin share. Whenever we meet another intellectual in the course of the series, Maturin is always more than they are. Better, more human, better read, better connected.
which is why we did not meet Mrs. Herschel in person. Because she'd have crushed them both.
She'd have crushed them both. I read a book about her.
She's amazing.
I don't think I've ever seen it here. She's had a couple of really good biographies.
I've never read one. Like I say, that essay is the only thing I've ever read. But from what I understand, of course, being fascinated, I looked her up on different sites and stuff, and she was probably the best astronomer in Europe at the time.
People, established astronomers whose names feature more prominently in astronomy textbooks, regularly had her check their figures. Regularly had consulted with her.
She was brilliant.
But we've spent virtually no. That's the only time. That scene, that opening part's the only time in England that we spend. We're overseas the rest of the time. And I don't know. It would only be quasi spoiling the book to say that our characters survive, right? Because there are 20 books after this one. You can just assume that they're
all called Maturin.
I know, it's pretty suspicious. Yeah. And it's wonderfully done.
Edgar Rice Burroughs would have said, "Son of Aubrey."
Don't give them ideas, or we'll be doing an Edgar Rice Burroughs read along until we're both old and gray. But you finished this more recently than I did. This is what number time read along for you? This is your second time reading it?
No, this is my first going through the whole series, and I'm doing it slow because I got that set over there.
It is a beautiful set. I almost feel guilty taking it.
You wouldn't feel guilty taking it. There's another word that would describe it.
I've just got the standard.
I love those Norton ones. They're wonderful.
They are wonderful. Yeah. They're really good. Yeah. But what were your initial thoughts when you read it? So this is your first time reading?
Right. So I compare it to a lot, because I read a lot of nautical fiction. So I compare it to like Alexander Kent, which is a totally different animal. Horatio Hornblower, obviously. Dudley Pope. Any of those writers who wrote about that era. But oddly enough, there's a rougher edge, like if I read, like you mentioned, Richard Sharp by Bernard Cornwell. That's got a harsher edge, but I think it sort of fits the character. You know, he's not a Jack Aubrey who's a captain of a ship.
Right.
He's a totally different, totally different thing. But I it's obviously better written. The literature is better than the other guy, and I love the other ones. I'm not putting them down. So you do see a difference in language. You do see a difference in. None of those other ones are ever going to bring it. Well, maybe they would, but you wouldn't
That partially worries me with this whole series as a bar to readers. That especially the first book, because O'Brien doesn't give you any kind of. None of his characters speak any exposition.
You probably needed it less in this one than you did
Yeah,
the first.
if you've been sticking along. I don't think you could read this book without reading the others, right? Could you? Can you imagine reading this book as the first Aubrey-Maturin novel?
Yeah, I can.
Really?
Somebody read it first in a paperback somewhere back in the day. And they just found it in their charity shop, picked it up, and probably thought it was great. And not knowing the whole background.
Right.
And you could do it. Yeah, I think you could do it.
The writing certainly helps. The writing is incredible.
Yeah.
I went through this with a pencil to annotate this volume, and I was annotating.
You didn't go through that one with a pencil.
No, I used a pen.
Oh,
It's
that's better.
a little more
A highlighter?
class. Yeah. Like there are just tossed off moments of brilliance all throughout. When Jack Aubrey finally meets Admiral Bertie, for instance, when he's helping himself up onto the admiral's ship, and he says he's shocked and says, "Is this stooped, aged figure the fighting, wenching captain that I last saw?" And then we're told, I think I wrote it down.
I said the same thing when I saw him come back up here.
Once upon a time, I think I wrote it down. Yeah, as he took off his cocked hat, he realized with shock that the tall, bowed, white-haired figure who answered his salute was the Admiral Bertie he had last seen in the port of Spain as a lively, wenching captain of the Renown. And some part of his busy mind said to him, beneath all the rest, "Perhaps you are not so very young yourself, Jack Aubrey." That's awesome. To have a writer that just stops to say that. A wonderful moment like that.
Yeah.
Where because Aubrey's not a buffoon. He's not stupid. He's just not as learnedly intellectual as Stephen Maturin.
Well, he is in different things.
In different
They did
yes.
Because he's very scientific and he's very into maritime science.
Navigation, angles,
Which
mathematics. He's
Maturin
teaching.
doesn't have a clue about.
No.
So it's just different interests. Which hence the astronomy, because he wants it for navigation.
Right.
It's not because he thinks there's UFOs.
Right.
He's got a practical
Whereas
purpose.
Maturin has a lot of naturalist interests. Like wherever they go, he's interested in studying.
Oh my
nature.
God, the funny scene. The manatee.
Yes.
So a manatee, or what do they call dugongs?
The point is made that it wasn't technically a manatee,
Right.
but a dugong.
So it's floating
I
by,
don't know the difference.
and I guess it's nursing a cub. So half the crew, the deck crew, is arguing whether, because I guess there was a flash of light on it from the sun when it went by or something on the skin, is arguing whether it has a mirror.
Yeah, they all think it's a mermaid.
They think it's a mermaid. And the other half is arguing whether it had a comb. And Maturin's up on the deck, and I forgot why he was in such a good mood or something. Oh, he had seen it, and he'd always wanted to see
That's
it.
a joy to him to see.
And
it.
and the other guy said, well, they're ready to come to blows. I mean, bloody blows with each other because it matters so much.
Over what the mermaid was carrying.
And the last minute, as an aside, he throws off, yells down to him, "It was a hairbrush." And then they're just all standing around shocked. Now they don't know what to do. It's a hairbrush. But he has moments like that where they break out a little bit. But the weird thing to me is, not the weird thing, the interesting thing is that now that Aubrey's a Commodore, he is stepped back. He needs that for his growth. You can't be
right. You
an
can't.
admiral
You can't
and
be
all
that way
eventually.
forever. But that does come up in the book. That he's noticing that he's not in the front of battle.
He has to learn how to do with what he did with his men, now with his officer corps, that each are gods on their own vessel.
Right. And that he can't do it all himself.
There's a time when a guy refuses to get underway and accept the ship the way it is, and Maturin's screaming, "You should hang this guy." And Aubrey tells him, no, he's within his rights. No matter what it does to our plans, this is the tradition, this is the Navy. He's in his rights. And he's not going to do anything about it. And
Although one of the traditions that comes up was, I mean, it isn't explained in the book. O'Brien doesn't explain it at all. No matter how adventurous a reader you are, if you're reading this book and you get to it, you're not going to have any idea what's happening. When they cross the equator, and they invite Neptune on board, do ships in service still do something weird when they cross
yeah, you get a certificate.
Really?
You spend the next week trying to wipe grease off your belly. I'll leave it at that.
Hired merchant
It's
vessels don't do
lonely
that.
out there.
Yeah, I guess it is. Hired merchant vessels don't do anything like
Yeah,
that.
no.
They don't
Coast
pause for
Guard,
ceremony.
Navy, foreign navies, a lot of them do it.
And Jack Aubrey does not share Stephen Maturin's love of nature. Maturin comments at one point in this book that to most Englishmen there are only two kinds of birds in the world: edible and inedible. they don't care about the rest of it. But that is the book. That is the Mauritius Command. We're trying hard here not to spoil the actual climax of the book.
It's a battle.
It's a battle. It's a battle. And there's a winner and there's a loser. And then there's a fantastic detail at the end. It's going to be hard to describe it without spoiling it.
Yeah.
But it is, let's just say, the book starts with the political machinations of Stephen Maturin, and it ends with them as well.
Brilliant.
Brilliantly done, and it shows the partnership of the two of them.
It'll also make you chuckle.
It will.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the thing that I don't know that you'll get when you just see 20 of these in a row. I'm not sure that you'll get that you will chuckle in almost every book. And you'll also cry. The story of Stephen Maturin and his wife will make you cry at a couple of different points in a couple of different books that we will get to. Right?
Yeah.
Because we're going to do them all.
We're going to do them all.
So that's the Mauritius Command. That is, by popular command, 2 by Sea returns. For this, the 4th book in the Aubrey-Maturin series, and we'll move on to Desolation Island next time, whenever that will be. This is not the extent of the popular demand. They also want a long, rambling conversation.
Yeah, but 2 by Sea covers more than just Aubrey-Maturin.
Right. This is not just
Yeah,
Aubrey-Maturin.
we've done a lot of different things, both of us, on this already.
Yeah.
So
Maybe we could link to a bunch of those. I want to link to your videos on Patrick O'Brien, but maybe a bunch of other 2 by Seas just to get the old scent back. Because we have done quite a few of them.
Yeah.
We were doing these regularly and then just went off the rails.
Yeah.
Because one of us is a busy public figure.
And then I do stuff too.
One of us only writes.
Yeah.
That's all. The other person has all sorts of
I'm
things
trying to
do.
branch out into other things.
So sometimes long-term commitments go astray.
Got a whole bunch of stories on that one.
I feel a little bit embarrassed making 5 videos a day.
I make 5 videos a month. No, not always.
I know. I never know what to do when new booktubers say, "Hoping for one a month."
Yeah,
I don't know what to say.
I do. Yeah, good luck with that.
But anyway, that is the Mauritius Command.
Yeah.
So when next we weigh anchor, it will be Desolation Island. Probably wise not to set a time frame. We'll get to it when we get to it.
Yeah.
Because I'm
It'll be this summer though.
this summer.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. We won't make you wait forever between books.
Yeah.
It's just I've got so many responsibilities.
Go clean your room when you're done.
I know. This book goes back on the shelf. My one bookshelf.
You got 2 bookshelves.
I do. More book hunting is in order.
Maybe soon.
Well, we went on a listen book haul today. You've probably seen we both made videos about it. And honestly, what more book hauling could we possibly do?
They'll find out.
It's surely not possible to do any more book hauling in 1 week. Check back with us in a couple of weeks, and we'll have more books for you.
Sure. I don't think that's going to work.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you very much. I'm going to post this on my channel. I'll leave links to everything in the world. Mark's channel, his Patrick O'Brien previous videos, to situate you if you're going through the series for the first time, and as many 2 by C's as we can link to. So, thank you, BookTube.
Oh, is it like that?